Second pillar that I want to tell you about. The first one is vision. What do you see? What are you working on? How do you see yourself? The second pillar is belief. Now, this is very important. It's not enough just to have a vision, because there's a lot of would-be entrepreneurs who have a vision who don't go do it because they don't believe. They don't believe in the impact. Very few understand the power of belief. And we don't talk about this phenomenon enough. I just happen to work in a field where it can make you or break you, so I have a very intimate relationship with belief. No great thing has ever happened without the power of belief behind it. Not one great thing has ever happened without the power of belief behind it. I coached this kid one time at a high school I was coaching at prior to coming to Faith Christian. And I was the head coach there, and this little kid kept messing up my practice, okay? He was a freshman. His name was Andy Davis. And Andy was, he was about 5'6", and he weighed about 140 pounds, okay? And he might have been small, but he was slow. And so I'm thinking that Andy has zero shot of playing varsity football, zero, okay? So the year before we went to the state semifinals, and here's this little freshman who comes up, and I'm thinking he's on the practice team, and he's over there playing for the junior varsity. But play after play, he keeps messing it up. I didn't really know who was messing up. I just know that our varsity running backs and quarterbacks kept getting tackled after just 2-yard gains. And they just kept falling down. He was so small and wimpy, I didn't see what was making him fall. But it was this little guy chewing on their ankles, I guess. He just kept tackling them. And so I walked over to the coach and I said, what's this Andy Davis? He makes every tackle. Even our varsity kids can't block him. And then he said, I told you so. And well, I just blew him off because that was 8th grade. There's a significant difference between 8th grade and Friday night. Okay? I know he did good as an 8th grader. Thanks. Well, he messed up every play, basically. So at water break, I walk over to him, and I said, Andy, I said, how do you keep making the tackle every time? He's getting a drink of water, and instead of just doing this and talking to me like the rest of the team does, I mean, they're in attention mode right now, right? It's the head coach, and he's the little freshman. He just keeps squirting water in his mouth, and he cuts his eyes over at me. He finishes drinking, puts it down, does this, and he said, well, Coach, I just don't think they can block me. And he just walks off. And you know what? He was right. He was small and slow, and I might add, weak, and no one could block him. I was forced to play him as a freshman. He made all district. He just didn't know that he wasn't supposed to be any good. And the best thing he had, belief. He said, you know, Coach, I just don't believe they can block me. He was right. He was real good as a 10th and 11th and 12th grader, I might add. Going into the 08 season, the season that we played Gainesville, let me tell you why they were on our schedule. They were on our schedule because the Texas Association of Private and Parochial Schools was going to teach Grapevine Faith a lesson, okay? We had won 9 state championships in 4 years in multiple sports, so we were the big bullies in Class 4A. And the Texas Association of Private and Parochial Schools was going to even the playing field. So they put us in a very strange alignment in terms of our conference or district play. I mean, instead of driving 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes or even an hour to play a game, I look up and I'm in a district with Midland Christian. Midland. I mean, Midland's not the edge of the earth, but you can see it from there. I don't want to drive to Midland. 7 hours? So we did some research on the cost analysis here. Did you know to be in that district, it was going to cost us over $100,000 in fuel and hotels? You ever paid the hotel bill for a football team? Absurd. And what's worse is loading up a bus for 7 or 8 of whatever other team and going all the way. That's right when fuel had jumped up to over $4 a gallon, diesel. So after I called the association, our governing body, and spoke with them in a very edifying way and asked them to reconsider what they were doing, and they would not, I said, well, I'll tell you what. And I had thought this out, by the way. This wasn't a flippant comment. I said, I'll tell you what, we'll just play up. And he said, you'll play what? I said, up. We'll play all the giant DFW teams, all the Dallas-Fort Worth teams. He said, well, you've only got 250 people in your high school. We've got about 330 now. I said, well, I know. And he said, do you understand that Nolan Catholic has 1,800 kids in just 9 through 12? And I said, do you understand that I'm going to spend $108,000 on diesel? I'll play the New York Giants. So he moved us up. So here we are. We're a state power in Class 4A, and we're put in the largest 5A district in the state. Now, I coached in public school before God called me to private school, and I'm telling you right now, public school wouldn't even schedule that game. I mean, they wouldn't even schedule that. That's like, say, a 2A playing a giant 4A, okay? So, bottom line is, we go to our camp. We have a Remember the Titans camp before the season. We literally load them up on the bus and drive out to the woods. It's greatness. And all those freshmen, they can't quit because their mom's, an hour and a half away. They're just forced to get through it. So, and once you make it past Mount Lebanon, you're good to go forever. You're like, I'm alive. And so they play then. So that's really not why we do it. We just say that a lot to scare them. But we go off for a week. Well, it's an incredible week. And it's outlined in the book, if you read the book. Monday night, we have 3 practices a day. It's great. All they do is play football, eat, and sleep. That's it. Oh, and do Bible time. So those 4 things. So it's just a great camp. Brings everybody together. So on the last night, we have a commitment night. And on commitment night, I'm the first one. I get up and I make my commitment to that team for that year. And then the next coach and the next coach. And when the coaches are done, the seniors come up. And after the seniors, the juniors come up. We don't allow sophomore and freshmen to do it. We just want them to watch. We don't need a 9th grader up there babbling up a bunch of stuff here. So we let them watch and learn. Well, that night, going into this 2008 season, here's what these kids were facing. We graduated virtually every starter from the 2017 that went to the state championship. And that team was very good. I mean, very good. And we graduated like 8 people on both sides of the ball. We didn't have a lot of starters coming back. Not only were we graduating the best team in school history, and we were playing with a bunch of people with not a ton of varsity experience, we were also moving up to the largest classification in the state of Texas. And so these guys coming up, the newspapers were saying, good night to Faith. The power, what the one headline said, the power grab is over. Reality is about to set in. All these things, right? And so our kids read that. Their parents were nervous wrecks, right? They just didn't like the idea of playing against these larger schools. And I'll never forget this one kid. His name was Josh O'Neill. Now, we're talking about belief here. Josh got up, and he was a senior that year, very influential kid. And he got up in front of everybody, and I'll never forget this. He put his hands on his hips, and he stared like this at the ground. And when it was his turn to talk, and I mean deadly silent, like this. No one was saying anything, and all you could hear was him breathing. I think he was trying to hold back the tears. And we're sitting there watching this senior, and it's a magical moment. And then I hear this little click, and it was one of his tears hit the ground. And he's just sitting here, and tears are falling, and they just keep falling. And I'm thinking, okay, he's going to make the freshman quit and run home here. Well, then Josh looks up, unashamed. I mean, this guy's a pretty physical specimen. No problem with crying in front of his teammates. That's the beauty of the program and the week. Teach boys to be men. And so he looks up and says, let me tell you something. I don't care how many people goes to their school. Only 11 will be out there with us, and we're not going to lose. And when he said that, I kid you not, I don't even have any hair, and it was standing up. I could feel something come into the room, and everybody else could too. You could just literally, he willed this belief on us. Fast forward, we're going into week 6. Nolan Catholic, ranked number 1 in the state. They have 5 kids that will play Division I football the following year. Grapevine Faith, God only knows why, but we're ranked 5th in the state. Both teams undefeated. And we're going to their place. It is our first district game in Class 5A. and we're going to the #1 ranked team in the state. Man, I was praying on that bus ride. So we get over there, and there's 4,000 howling fans. There's media everywhere. And right as we got off the bus, somebody handed me a paper that didn't make me feel any better. When I opened it up, it said, Powerhouse Private Schools meet for first time. I sure wish that guy would have put in there the enrollment figures. You know, I'm thinking. So we go out, and the bottom line is we play them, and it is an absolute bloodbath. And no one thinks we have a shot to win. And the final score is Nolan 13, Faith 20. In an absolute bloodbath. And I could not believe it. And it's still the most shocking game I've ever been a part of. We had zero business beating them. Zero. We were outweighed by 50 pounds across the front line. 50 pounds a person. Not as a lot, per person. 50 pounds. We're talking, for my 200-pounder, for my 180-pounder, there was a 240-pounder over here. Per man. And we won the game. And you know what's interesting? The only people who thought we could win were in the locker room. But everybody thought we could win by halftime. And we hung on. The power of belief. You know, there's a guy named James Allen. He's a writer who wrote a few years back. He's a great writer. I don't necessarily agree with all of his theological points. However, this is what he said about thinking and belief. He said, a man's mind can be likened to a garden, which may be intelligently cultivated or allowed to run wild. But whether cultivated or neglected, it must and will bring forth. And if no useful seeds are put into it, then an abundance of useless weed seeds will fall therein and continue to produce their kind. That's taken from, that's an excerpt from something called As a Man Thinks. And it's true. It's true for you, it's true for me, it's true for everyone. And all you have to do is be a gardener to appreciate that illustration. You leave town for a week and you come back, and what are all these things growing? And if you don't get on it, they take over. I'm worried about my garden right now. Mark 9, verse 23, Jesus said all things are possible to him who what? Believes. Henry David Thoreau said, live your beliefs and you can turn the world around. Ezra Pound said, what matters is not the idea that a man holds, but the depth at which he holds it. It's not necessarily that the idea is always right. The belief sometimes overcomes even error. One time I made a bad play call, just one time. And we called this running play for this exact location because it was our best play. I'm not big on tricking you. I'm going to run a few things and run it right down your throat, and I don't care if you know it's coming. We'll just do it so good you can't do anything about it. That's how we roll. So we're running to this one location here, okay? And I guess everybody in the stands, including their entire team, knew it because they were all right where we were running. And this kid named Thomas Whitecotton is leading the play, and there's a guy in the way, and he hits him and runs him into another guy and pushes 3 or 4 people out of the way, and we get a critical first down. And before the play, I'm on the headphones, and I'm saying, well, this ain't going to work. I'm looking, there's no way. And then I just watch him bulldoze everybody out of the way, and I just can't believe it. And I look at a coach, and I say, can you believe that? And he said, so we just keep playing the game. Well, after the game, I said, Thomas, do you remember when it was 4th and 1 and we called this play and you were hit a yard deep? How did you get those guys out of the way? He said, you told us that if we were in that play, it would work every time. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Where's my son, Deuce? Deuce, you're going to the major leagues. Where is he? I'll convince him now. Belief. Here's the third pillar I want to give you. The first one is you better have a vision. The second one is you better believe in it. Here's number 3. I call it choosing best. Now, as I was reading your website to find out a little bit about this church, I noticed this one paragraph. It really got my attention. It said there are a lot of good things that we could be doing. You know what I'm talking about on the website? But we want to focus on the things that we do best. I think it said after a survey, we decided it was this, that, and the other. Somebody around here is doing some thinking. Life is full of good opportunities. But good is the enemy of best.